I was sitting here just in the past 5 minutes, not knowing what I wanted to talk about, and I closed my eyes, and the first thing that I saw was crazy, crazy waters filled with darkness around it, with a boat, with a bunch of men sitting in that boat, not knowing if they're gonna die or not. And then I saw Jesus standing on the water, walking towards them. And then I saw a man get out of that boat and walk on the water too. This is something that I feel like is overlooked. The story that I'm describing is the story of Matthew chapter 14, verse 22. And this specific chapter, I've never heard it taught in this way. Man being able to do something that only God could do, a miracle, if his eyes are on God. So this is something I am really excited to talk about, and I think we're ready to jump in. So let's talk about God. Okay. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start reading through the chapter until we get to the end of the message, and then we're going to start diving deep into it. Let's envision this all together. Immediately, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. Now, when the evening came, he was alone there, but the boat was now in the middle of the sea, tossed by the waves, for the wind was contrary. Jesus told everybody to get into the boat. He said, I'm not coming with you. I'm going to pray. So they got in the boat and they headed out. Where they were going, I don't know. That'll be something we look up. Now, in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went to them, walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, it's a ghost. No kidding. You see somebody out on the sea, that's probably a ghost, and they're probably going to go down. That's what I'd be thinking if I was them at the time. They cried out for fear, but immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, be of good cheer. It is I. Do not be afraid. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water. That's smart. That's smart. The first thing that pops up in my mind is, testing the spirit, because, the spirits and everything, they can trick you too. So he said, Jesus, come. And when Peter had come down out of the boat, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw that the wind was boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him, and said to him, O you of little faith, why do you doubt? And when they got into the boat, the wind stopped. The wind ceased. Then those who were in the boat came and worshipped him, saying, truly, you are the Son of God. And that's what I want to talk about tonight. There is a lot in this. Like, if you imagine that you were somebody on that boat with this Jesus guy that you barely know, and that was the only crazy thing to ever happen in your life, you would never forget that moment. And I think that the generations after you would also never forget that moment. Think about this for a second. The disciples, they saw so much, right? But walking on water, I feel like if we're going to compare how crazy like these events are, okay, seeing somebody walk again, knowing that they've never walked their entire life, like, wow. That's amazing. Like, your mind is still blown at that fact, but there might still be doubt in you saying, well, maybe something just activated or whatever it is, right? Or same thing with the blind guy that, he healed him. You're like, wow, that's next level, man. Like, that's amazing. Maybe something in his brain just clicked and it turned on. But to get out of a boat in the middle of the sea and you put your foot on that water and you don't go down and you start walking to the guy that's been doing all of these miracles, and then you sink. You start to sink. And then he calls you out again. He offers his hand to you. You take it and you're back up on top of the water. There's no reasonable explanation why anybody in a boat in the middle of the sea is putting their foot out on the water and standing and walking on it. So I think this is why at the end, if I remember correctly, those who were in the boat came and worshipped him, saying, truly, you are the Son of God. Because how else could you explain something like that? Now remember, this is before he died and came back to life, which is another impossible thing there. But for them at this time, imagine how incredible it must have been to see that, or experience that as Peter. Wow. I've read this verse before, not in detail like I am going to do today, but the thing that really stood out to me the last time I read this was when he called his faith out and he says, "Why did you doubt? Oh, ye of little faith, why did you doubt?" So you can almost feel like, if you're watching a kid do something and you're like, why did you think that you couldn't do that? You were already doing it. Or an even better example, when you see your son or daughter walk for the first time and you're looking at them and it's super clear that you're like, this kid is ready to walk. If he just has that confidence, he can walk. But then the kid gets scared and just drops. I feel like that's a perfect scenario where you'd be like, oh, ye of little faith, why did you doubt? You could walk. And actually, now that I'm thinking, a child walking for the first time is directly comparable to Peter walking for the first time on water. So think about that for a minute, because it's a big leap when a child's able to do that. This must have been a big leap in Peter's life regarding his faith for Jesus. So in the same way that a kid has that huge leap of faith the first time that they walk and they trust in their legs, in this scenario, when they're in the boat, it's the same thing. Peter just hit that next level where he just had that increase in faith in his ability to walk, but not for trusting his legs or even the water. He was trusting Jesus purely. This is amazing. And you know what? Where I was going with this right before is the things that we can do when we have our eyes on Jesus and trust in his word. We can do anything. We can walk on water. I'm not saying to go try it out and go walk on water, but my point is we can do anything. We can do the things that Jesus told us that we can do if we have the faith to do it. This doesn't just go for having faith to do something new. What's coming to me right now is this has a lot to do with the times we're in right now. Right now, the world is absolutely crazy, as we all know. And I feel like we need to keep our eyes on Jesus right now. That's the only way that we're going to make it to him. Just like Peter had to keep his eyes and his faith on Jesus to be able to walk across the water to Jesus, we have to keep our eyes on Jesus so that we can walk across time through this world and make it to Jesus. Yeah, that was pretty good. No, really, that's pretty good. I know it's easy to feel like torn down from hard times or overwhelming times where we just have a lot going on, questions are not answered, but we really need to just keep our eyes on Jesus and have faith. And so if Jesus is not physically here, like he was in this verse, in this chapter here, how do we keep our eyes on Jesus? We keep our Bibles open. We read our Bibles, and we keep our eyes on what Jesus is saying. We don't read it. We keep our eyes on what Jesus is saying. And to find out what Jesus is saying, we have to really take our time to read and meditate on it. Reading something at surface level isn't going to give us the same type of relationship as sitting there and trying to understand. This is why the people who you're closest to is the way that it is. Because when they speak, you're not just skimming over and forgetting about it. When they speak, you're listening and you're letting it sink in, trying to decide, what should I do about it? Is there anything they want me to do? What did they mean by that? And you try and go into detail. This is a really powerful parable that I think everybody needs to keep in their heart at all times, especially right now with the way that the world is going. Keep your eyes on Jesus. We could believe that Jesus could walk on water. That is not a big surprise to say that the God of absolutely everything could stand and walk on water if he wanted to. But to say that a man got out of a boat, a man, just a regular dude who was born here, had a mom, had a father, caught fish for a living, he got out of the boat and he walked to another man who is God. I don't know if you guys are understanding where I'm going with this. The fact that a man walked on water. This just completely changes things. When God says that we can do anything through him, imagine how much faith it took for Peter to step out into the water and start walking to Jesus. That's another thing too. Not a lot of people would have enough faith to actually step out of that boat. So his faith was already extremely high. But even with that much faith, even after everything that he's seen, he still started to sink. And you really have to wonder, if somebody with that much faith in Jesus can start to sink, how much easier would it be for someone like me to sink? And I'm going to be straight with you. Very easy. It's very easy for us to sink. In fact, I think we wouldn't even have gotten out of the boat to sea. We wouldn't even have wanted to get out of the boat and even just dip our toes into the water and say, okay, let's see how this works. Maybe I put my foot down and I feel like an imaginary floor. We wouldn't even have got that far. But Peter did. He put his foot out and he started walking. That tells me a lot. We need to get into the Bible and the Word, and we need to know it and know everything that Jesus did, almost like we were a disciple there watching him. We need to get just as confident and firm in the things that Jesus said. We need to have these testimonies ingrained in our head as if we were following Jesus at that time and that those memories are our own. And only then, I think we will have enough faith to put our foot out of the boat and start walking on the water. And that is when miracles will start happening in our life in ways that we've never seen before. So I want to challenge you right now. Where is your faith lacking? If there's a specific place that you can see your faith is lacking, go fix it. If not, open your Bible and start getting familiar with the Old and the New Testament as best as possible. Only way we're going to walk on water is going to be to have the same amount of faith as the disciples did. Not just from reading the Bible and feeling good because, we read a couple proverbs and, life's going to get better. I'm talking real faith, and that's only possible by reading the Bible every single day. That's exactly why I am doing this Let's Talk About God podcast. This isn't about getting massive reach, although I really pray that it does because I think a lot of people will benefit from it. This is simply a way to keep me accountable so that every single night I can pick a chapter, pick a few verses, and start to go into it and understand it in a way that I will never forget it. That's the only way we're going to get locked in. So find what's going to make you stay consistent and start learning everything about Jesus as possible so that you know him just as well as the disciples did. Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm feeling pretty good with that. If this podcast helped you, if you like the direction we're going, share it with a friend. We'll talk about God again next time.